Putumayo, 1907. Deep in the Amazon basin, on a stretch of river so remote that the nearest telegraph was weeks away, a man named Julio Cesar Arana was building an empire out of tree sap. His company, the Peruvian Amazon Rubber Company, was listed on the London Stock Exchange. It had British directors. It had a seat at respectable dinner tables in London and Paris. What it also had, hidden behind ledgers and export tallies, was a system of forced labor so brutal that indigenous Huitoto, Bora, and Andok workers were whipped, starved, and mutilated for failing to meet their weekly rubber quota. Historians estimate that in this single stretch of jungle, tens of thousands of people died so that raw latex could be shipped downriver, boiled, rolled into smoked black balls the size of boulders, and sent across the Atlantic, destined to become tires, hoses, waterproof coats, and yes, something as small and forgettable as a rubber band. But the story does not start here. It starts more than 3,000 years earlier, in the humid lowlands of what is now southern Mexico. Around 1600 BCE, the Olmec people, one of the earliest complex civilizations in the Americas, were tapping a tree called Castilla elastica. They collected its milky sap, and here is the detail that surprises most people. They figure out how to stabilize it. Raw latex on its own is sticky and brittle, but by mixing it with the juice of the morning glory vine, Ipomoea alba, Mesoamerican peoples created something bouncier, more durable, more workable. Archaeologists have recovered rubber balls from Olmec sites dating back to this period, used in a ritual ball game played on stone courts across Mesoamerica for the next 3,000 years. A game with religious weight, sometimes ending in human sacrifice. Rubber, in other words, was sacred before it was practical. Long before anyone in Europe had a word for it, indigenous chemists in Central America had already solved a materials science problem that would stump European industry for the next 3 centuries. Europeans did not encounter this substance until Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 1500s and watched, baffled, as Aztec nobles bounced balls that seemed to defy gravity. They wrote about it. They shipped samples home. And then, for roughly 200 years, mostly nothing happened. It sat in cabinets of curiosities. It was a novelty, not a material. The real turn came in 1736, when a French scientist named Charles-Marie de La Condamine, on an expedition to Peru and Ecuador to measure the exact shape of the Earth, sent samples of Amazonian rubber back to the French Academy of Sciences. He described how local peoples used it, waterproofing cloth, molding it into bottles and boots. Europe took notice slowly. In 1770, the English chemist Joseph Priestley, yes, the same Priestley who would later help discover oxygen, noticed that a lump of this strange substance could rub out pencil marks on paper. He called it rubber. The name stuck. Nobody today remembers that it was named after an eraser function, not a stretching function. Think about that for a second. But naming a thing is not the same as taming it. Through the late 1700s and into the early 1800s, rubber manufacturing was a disaster waiting to happen. Companies across England and the United States tried to mass-produce rubber goods, shoes, coats, mail bags, and every single one of them ran into the same wall. In summer heat, rubber turned to a foul-smelling, sticky goo. In winter cold, it cracked like glass. The Roxbury India Rubber Company in Massachusetts made and sold thousands of rubber shoes in the 1830s, only to watch entire warehouses of them melt into a stinking, useless pile within a year. Investors lost fortunes. The material was fascinating and, industrially speaking, completely unusable. Enter Charles Goodyear, a failed hardware merchant from Connecticut who was, by 1839, broke, in debtor's prison more than once, and functionally obsessed. Working in a small kitchen in Woburn, Massachusetts, he was experimenting with rubber and sulfur when, according to the story he told for the rest of his life, he accidentally dropped a rubber-sulfur mixture onto a hot stove. Instead of melting, it charred slightly and held its shape. It had become elastic, stable, and heat-resistant in a way nothing before it had been. He called the process, once refined, Vulcanization, named after Vulcan, the Roman god of fire. That was 1839. He patented it in 1844. This decision seemed small at the time. It was not. Vulcanization is the reason rubber exists as an industrial material at all. Without it, there is no tire industry, no rubber hose, no waterproof anything, and no rubber band as we understand it. Goodyear himself, ironically, died broke in 1860, deep in legal battles over patent infringement, having never made real money off the discovery that would eventually put his name on one of the largest tire companies in the world. Now, across the Atlantic, a British inventor named Thomas Hancock had been separately experimenting with rubber for years, and, in a quiet act of what modern audiences would call corporate sabotage, filed his own vulcanization patent in England in 1843, just weeks before Goodyear could file there himself. Hancock had seen a sample of Goodyear's vulcanized rubber, reverse-engineered the process, and beaten him to the European Patent Office. It is one of the more understated grudges in the history of material science. And it was Hancock, on March 17, 1845, who patented the rubber band. Not a national holiday, not a headline, just a small strip of vulcanized rubber, cut into a loop, designed to bundle papers, envelopes, and letters in an era before paper clips were common. That was 1845, a quiet patent, filed by a man most people have never heard of, for an object most people use without thinking roughly a dozen times a week for the rest of human history. For the rubber band to become cheap and universal, though the raw material had to become cheap and universal too, and that meant rubber trees, and rubber trees meant the Amazon, because for most of the 19th century, Hevea brasiliensis, the para rubber tree, grew almost exclusively in Brazil. This is where the story turns dark and stays dark for a while. By the 1870s and accelerating through the 1890s, global demand for rubber, driven first by waterproofing and mechanical belting, then explosively by the invention of the pneumatic bicycle and automobile tire, turned the Amazon into one of the most profitable and most brutal extraction economies on Earth. The city of Manaus, sitting 1,000 miles up the Amazon River, became absurdly wealthy almost overnight. Rubber barons built an opera house there, the Teatro Amazonas, completed in 1896, importing Italian marble and Venetian chandeliers to a jungle city with no roads connecting it to the outside world. Every brick of that wealth sat on top of forced indigenous labor. In the Congo Free State, under the personal ownership of Belgium's King Leopold II, a nearly identical horror was unfolding at the same time: quotas, mutilation, an estimated death toll in the millions, all in the name of rubber for European tires and telegraph insulation. Investigations by British diplomat Roger Casement into both the Congo in 1904 and the Putumayo in 1912 exposed the scale of it to a horrified European public. Rubber, an object of childhood play in ancient Mesoamerica, had become one of the deadliest commodities on the planet. This decision seemed small at the time. It was not, either. In 1876, an Englishman named Henry Wickham smuggled roughly 70,000 rubber tree seeds out of Brazil, packed them in banana leaves aboard a ship bound for London, and delivered them to Kew Gardens. From there, seedlings were shipped to British colonial plantations in Ceylon and Malaya. Brazil had, until that point, held something close to a natural monopoly on rubber. Wickham broke it. Within 30 years, Southeast Asian plantations, organized, efficient, brutally exploitative in their own right through colonial labor systems, had overtaken the Amazon entirely. Manaus's rubber boom collapsed almost as fast as it had risen. The Opera House still stands today, a monument to a wealth that evaporated within a single generation, built on suffering that outlasted the profits by decades. By the early 20th century, rubber production had industrialized and globalized, and the rubber band itself became something ordinary. Small manufacturers across Britain and the United States began mass producing them for offices, post offices, and factories. In 1923, an Ohio businessman named William Spencer, running a rubber stamp company in Hot Springs, Arkansas, started making rubber bands out of leftover manufacturing scraps to keep costs down. That company, Alliance Rubber Company, still exists today and remains one of the largest rubber band manufacturers in the United States. Then came a second crisis, one that briefly made the rubber band, and rubber generally, a matter of national security. In December 1941 and through early 1942, Japan seized control of British Malaya and the Dutch East Indies, cutting off roughly 90% of America's rubber supply almost overnight. This was catastrophic. Tires, gaskets, hoses, boots, the entire American war machine ran on rubber, and the supply had just vanished. The U.S. government launched a synthetic rubber crash program, funneling enormous federal investment into companies like Goodyear, Firestone, and DuPont to mass-produce styrene butadiene rubber, a synthetic substitute developed at breakneck speed. Rubber drives collected scrap tires, raincoats, and yes, old rubber band from households across the country. Within 2 years, the United States was producing more synthetic rubber annually than the entire pre-war global natural rubber trade. A tiny office supply had, for a brief and strange period, become bound up with wartime industrial strategy at the highest levels of government. Fast forward to today, and the rubber band has become one of the most invisible, most reproduced objects in daily life. Global rubber band production is measured in the billions of units annually. Some industry estimates put U.S. consumption alone at well over 2 billion rubber bands a year, most of them used once, dropped, and forgotten within days. The United States Postal Service is reportedly one of the single largest institutional purchasers of rubber bands on the planet, ordering tens of millions of pounds of them annually to bundle mail for letter carriers. Enough that postal workers have their own informal folklore about specific rubber band colors correlating with specific manufacturing batches and specific seasons. Farmers use them by the truckload for orthodontic livestock procedures. Broccoli, asparagus, and green onions in grocery stores worldwide are bundled by rubber bands, billions of them, most made from a blend of natural and synthetic latex, most destined for a landfill within the hour. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most mass-produced, single-use objects human beings have ever created, and almost nobody thinks about it for longer than the second it takes to snap one around a stack of papers. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. Elastomers, the broader chemical family rubber belongs to, are now critical to some of the most advanced engineering on Earth. Silicone and synthetic rubber seals and O-rings are essential components in rocket engines and spacecraft. The failure of a single rubber O-ring, stiffened by unusually cold temperatures, was determined to be the direct cause of the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. A sobering reminder that this same category of just rubber material can carry catastrophic consequences when engineering margins are ignored. On a lighter note, astronauts aboard the International Space Station rely on the humble rubber band, alongside Velcro and bungee cord, to keep tools, pins, and equipment from drifting off into the module in zero gravity. The same basic elastic loop principle Thomas Hancock patented in a London workshop in 1845, now doing quiet, essential work 400 kilometers above the Earth. Researchers are also exploring new elastomer chemistry for Mars mission hardware, where extreme temperature swings demand materials that will not crack the way that 1830s Massachusetts rubber shoes once did. So trace it all the way back, and what you get is this: a substance discovered by Olmec chemists working with tree sap and morning glory vine, sacred enough to shape a ball game that lasted 3,000 years, became a European curiosity, then an industrial dead end, then, through one man's kitchen accident and another man's patent office maneuvering, a global commodity so valuable it fueled some of the worst human rights atrocities of the 19th and early 20th centuries, then a wartime strategic resource, then a mass-produced office and grocery store afterthought, and now, quietly, a piece of hardware holding tools together in orbit around the Earth. Sacred game piece, colonial nightmare, wartime priority, desk drawer clutter, spacecraft component. The rubber band became all of it, sometimes within the same century. It is, in the end, one of the strangest reversals in the history of human materials, an object almost nobody respects, built from a discovery almost nobody credits properly, sitting quietly in junk drawers on a planet where it once cost people their lives to produce it. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us which part of the rubber band's history surprised you the most. And make sure to like this video so more people can find it.